Hey folks, High Power Archery here with another video for you. Today we're going to show you the types of tools you should have in your shop in order to get started working on your own bows. You don't need to spend a lot of money. Most of the stuff you probably already have laying around the house. So we're going to start off with tools. What should you have, handy to help you work on your bow? Well, the first thing you should have is a good set of wrenches. Now, you don't have to break the bank on wrenches. You can buy a pretty inexpensive set. These that you see here, I got from Harbor Freight. They run about 10 bucks each. I'll also put links in the description for this so you can get the same kind of thing on Amazon. One thing that I will suggest to you though is if you get a set of wrenches, get yourself a standard and get yourself a metric. You'd be surprised what's standard or what's metric either on sites or on some of the other bow accessories you may find. So it's good to have both. Now, one word of warning. Once these things start to wear down, you only have two options. Discard them and get another set, or if you have the right tools, you can cut them down, square them off again, and you're good to go again. The reason why I'm saying discard them if they start to round off, if you don't have the means to square them off again, is because if you start to put a rounded off hex key like this, or an Allen key into one of your module screws or something like that, you're going to strip out the screw. And a lot of those screws are very, very soft to begin with. So you want to use something that's got good, fresh, new, sharp edges on it so it grabs in there and it's able to turn it without stripping it. The other thing that I suggest that you get is a good set of bits with a screwdriver attachment on it. Now this has your standard Allen key sets, Torx key in here. You've actually got Phillips, you name it, you got everything in here that you could possibly need. I personally like this really, really a lot because if I'm using this with adjusting modules for draw length, these little bits like you see on this one right here, they're very, very tough. And because this is a Craftsman, so I think this set was like 20 bucks. You can, once they start to wear out, you call them up. They don't need to see the receipt or anything like that, and they'll send you another set of bits for it. That's where you get that lifetime warranty from it. But this is incredibly, incredibly easy to use when you're adjusting module screws. So I suggest something like this for you. It's compact, portable, stays on all one little case, but it's really, really good to work with. Of course, you want to have your standard screwdrivers and, a regular flathead and a Phillips. You also want to have a ratchet with a bit on it that fits the Allen key size for the bolts on your bow, for the weight bolts. Why do I suggest this? Well, very simple. When you're adjusting the weight or you're adjusting tiller on your bow, we'll get into what the tiller is on another video, but when you're adjusting that on your bow, what will happen is a lot of times those bolts, they're not going to line up. So if you just have a standard lockdown wrench and you put it in there, sometimes it might be like this, sometimes it might be a little bit off like this. The beauty of something like this is you can actually get it to the point where it's even, now pointing down. Now when you're doing turns, you can do a full turn, going right back to where you started. If it starts out like this and you got to rely on coming back that way, a lot of times you can do that and you'll wind up forgetting, was it here, was it here? So I just like this because you can actually adjust it, make your adjustments exact. And you can do the same thing on the top and the bottom regardless of what position the weight bolt is on the bow. So it's very, very important. That's why I sport one of these, always have it with me. I keep another one inside my box that I take to range with me, but this is always in my shop. The other thing you want to have is Dloop material. Now, Dloop material comes in many different flavors. But as I said on podcasts before, and I've also said in other videos, what you get for Dloop material could really, really affect your performance. So here I have a couple of different ones. They come in different colors, okay? But I'm going to show you something. I always tell you, do not get stiff Dloop material, and there's a lot of it out there. What happens with stiff material is that the stiffer it is, the more torque gets induced as you hook on your release to that, and all of a sudden when you're twisting your hand to go up on the side of your face, you're going to induce a lot of torque on the string because it's just not flexible. So a good test to see which Dloop material you should be using is just to take a length of it like this, hold it out, and see what happens. If it's pliable like that it just drops, no problem. And this is BCY. This is probably like the best material you can get. I suggest between a 1.8 and a 2 millimeter D-loop diameter. They also have it in D-braid like this, which comes in a variety of colors. You can buy a little spool. You can buy it by the foot. I buy it by the roll like this because I do a lot of work in the shop. But here's one that you don't want to get. And this is just some generic one that I got. But watch this. If I take this, this is not flexible at all. Look. Stiff as iron going right across. Problem with that, you make a loop out of it. See how it actually holds that? Well, guess what? It tends to torque the string. It's very, very, very subtle when you look at it, but this creates a lot of problems. So we tell you to avoid this type of stiff D-loop material. The other thing you should have in the shop, these two are really important, especially if you're helping other people with their bows or you're just working on your own bow. These are campfire releases. Now they make one to simulate the wrist strap and one to simulate the handheld. Why are they important? Well, if you're having somebody draw back or you're drawing back your bow yourself, you could do that with your reel release. The problem is if the release fails or the bow goes off and you don't have an arrow in there, you could wind up dry firing the bow. We always suggest if you're working on your bow, have an arrow in there. Using one of these is the safest way to do it when you're drawing back to check something because it cannot go off. So this is the wrist strap version. This is the handheld version. You'll see that they both have deep hooks on them and they prevent the string from popping out. So when you're drawing back, same thing as a handheld. And when you're drawing back with this one in the wrist strap, same thing. You even have this little lever simulator over here, like if someone's going to pull back so they can see how their finger would be positioned. Absolute must when you're working on bows. The other thing you need to have, glue. Now, lots of different glues you can get. I suggest getting these. These are just Gorilla Glue sticks. Okay, they're inexpensive. You can get a pack of them for like $8-9. Big pack. Keep them in the shop. Have a lot of them in there. They're low temperature melting, so you can do this with a lighter in a situation if you had to. But also, you can do, the reason why I like low temperature glue sticks like this, because you're less likely to overheat the shaft trying to get them in there when you're putting in inserts. The rule is, if it's too hot for your finger when you're holding the shaft, it's too hot for that shaft. So when you're putting it in, you're just heating this up lightly, you're putting it around your insert, boom, pop it in there, good to go. You don't need a lot of heat to do it. That's why I suggest these over everything else. The high temp hot melt that you'll see, the problem with that stuff is it has to get very hot before it starts to work. But the other problem is when that stuff dries up and cools down, it tends to get brittle. And when it gets brittle, what will happen is you'll impact the target, it'll shatter that glue inside there, you'll wind up pulling out your shaft, and your insert and your point are left in the target. So to avoid that, I like something like this because it always stays flexible even when it's dry. Next thing, very important. If you're going to be doing, any person who works on a bow at one point or another is going to have to reserve the center serving or reserve an end serving or something like that. So you need a winder. Now this is probably one of the best winders you can get. This is like a $50 or $60 winder. This is a biter winder. They're great. I mean, they're substantial, they weigh nice, they do the job. You don't have to spend 50 or 60 bucks on something like this. This accomplishes the same thing. May not have the nice weight to it and all that, but it does it for you. And these run about 15, 20 bucks, sometimes 10 bucks on Amazon. We'll put the link in the description for that. But this, like everything else, is just another tool. Now, if you're going to be doing a lot of serving, like you decide to try to make your own strings or something like that, then I would highly suggest investing in something like this, like the biter winder. Next thing, and these are really important. If you're going to be working on your bowstring, you're replacing D-loops, that sort of thing, we suggest getting yourself a good set of pliers. Now, these are both specific D-loop pliers, okay? This one here, you put it inside the loop, crush it down, it'll stretch the loop for you. This one does the same thing. What this one does over here that this one does not, it has the ability to take off knock points, the metal knock points. It's got teeth in here that you can just squeeze that metal knock point and it'll open it up for you, pull it right off the string. Now, I can't tell you how many bows I see come in here where someone was trying to remove one of those metal knock points and wound up cutting the string because they cut right through the serving trying to get it off there and ruin the string. So this saves you a lot of headaches. They also make this, which people probably haven't seen from the old school days. Specifically, this tool, the only thing it does is remove knock points. And I've got one. This one is about 25 years old. I've had it laying around forever. I use it a couple times a month, whatever. It's great to have. Do you need these to do D-loops only? So let's just say you're not worried about knock points. Do you need these? Is this the only thing you can use to make D-loops? Absolutely not. You'll see I have a pair of needle nose pliers over here. It's helpful for reaching tight spaces and all that. Well, you can either use a needle nose plier. You can use anything. You tie your D-loop on. Just take the pliers like this, stick it inside the D-loop, and lightly open it up. You can also do that with a screwdriver. Stick it inside the D-loop, pull it, it opens up. I'm going to say something when it comes to making D-loops. You'll see some people, they make the D-loop, and they really, I mean, if they're using something like this, they squeeze down that thing to try to open it as tight as they can. I don't suggest doing that. Pull it so the knots are secure, and leave it at that. When you're drawing back the bow, it'll lock it in every single time. After a couple times, you'll never have to worry about it. But the reason why I don't reef on it like that is because if you reef really tight on that, it's going to eat right through your serving and separate your serving and contact the string directly, which you don't want to do. If that happens, you're going to wind up breaking the serving, or worse, having a string pop on you. So do not go ahead and reef on that serving like that, or you're in for problems. Now, the other things you can do, especially when you're going to be doing your own tuning. First, get a bow scale. This is an X-Spot bow scale. They sell them on Lancaster Archery. You can get them on Amazon too. They're great. They're inexpensive. When you're using something like this, you should have a secure rope that goes around it, much like you have a safety rope. So that if one of these things pops when you're doing it on a draw board, if this breaks, your bow's not going to dry fire. That extra string that's going around it, that safety loop, is going to catch it and stop it. The other thing that you should have, good pair of scissors, cutting the strings and all that. Also, you should really, if we're into cutting stuff over here, have some good razor blades. Now, razor blades, I'll put a link in the description, are very inexpensive. But when it comes to kids, I prefer that they use the scissors. Okay? Razor blades, have them around, great for removing serving, that sort of thing. It'll make it super easy. What I will tell you is this. If you're not good at removing serving or removing soft knots and stuff like that, I suggest that when you're working with the razor blades, keep one or two around that start to get dull, because even though they're a little bit dull, they'll make it easier for you to remove those things without possibly cutting the wrong thing. So keep them around even when they get dull, because they're very handy. But also keep a couple of good sharp ones, because if you're removing a peep sight or something like that, and you just want to cut the string on top of the peep instead of near the string or something like that, easy, slice it, and then just undo it with your hands. So razor blades are important. Now, when we're talking tuning, couple of things. There's levels, okay? Levels are inexpensive. I've got these levels I picked up, I think they were like 20 bucks or something like that on eBay. They're 3D printed levels. This is a more expensive level. These ones you're going to pay about $75 or $80 for. This is good quality. It gives you two different directions on the leveling for two different axes. It's great. And then you'll have something like this. These are the Hamskea levels. This is a Gen 1. This is a Gen 2. What they did with the Gen 2, they added this other level right on top so you can see if a shelf is level or if anything else is level on there. But this one also clamps onto the string where this one didn't. Equally, they were running about $50, $60 for these. Do you need all these levels? No. If you're working on a lot of bows, or you just want to buy quality stuff and never have to buy it again, then I suggest you get something like this, but it's not necessary. You can do everything that these things do with a set like this. You're going to need an arrow level anyway, so There's expensive ones out there, and then you have kits like this where it's a string level and an arrow level. $10 on Amazon. Really good kit to start with. I suggest you get something like this to start off. Another important thing to have, tape measure. You can measure your brace height, axle to axle with this, everything. Just get yourself, you probably already have one hanging around, get yourself one that you can keep with you in your range bag or something like that, but always have one handy in the shop. One of the most important tools on this table, if you're looking at it right now, you probably don't realize what it is. And it's right here. It is pens, pencil, and markers. Simple pen, write down everything that you're doing. If you can't remember something, you'll have written it down, axle to axle length, peep height, that sort of thing, write it down. Pencil, if you need to mark the cam where it is crossing the limb, use a pencil, because then you can just wipe it off if you want afterwards. But if you're tuning something, or you're changing strings, or you're adjusting a cable, this will allow you to make a mark. When you've done your work, you can either leave it there, or you just wipe it off. Silver Sharpies. Silver is very easy to see. So if you're doing it with one of these, you'll be able to make a permanent mark that you can always see as reference. A lot of people do that on their cams. Some people are very, vain about the way their cams look, whatever. They just don't want to see marks on it, so they don't like silver Sharpies. But when you're working on it, it's easier to do with a pencil. If you want to make it permanent, use a silver Sharpie. And then I have these. These are almost like a grease marker that I use, and I can use this to mark stuff on an arrow or mark it on the bowstring so that I can tell where something's going to be when someone's drawing it back, and then I can just wipe it off. They're very, very handy. The other thing that you can possibly get, you can find these on Lancaster Archery, and what this is the Dloop tool. Using this, there's a formula on it, and you can actually measure by sticking this in the existing D-loop. It'll tell you how to make the new D-loop. It'll tell you how long to cut it for, and everything based on a calculation that you see here. And I've used it before, and it's really, really accurate. So this is what you should have in the shop. Some of the stuff is a little bulky, so you don't really want to carry it around with you inside your quiver or inside a small toolbox. But this is what you should have as a minimum to get started. You can add draw boards. You can make your own draw board. I'll put links to in another video to many, many draw board designs out there. They're simple and inexpensive to make. Draw boards, you can buy a press. You can go as deep down that rabbit hole as you want, getting whatever you want to work on your bow. Now, there is a set of items here that you should carry mobile with you when you're in the range or when you're in the woods, actually. So say if you're a hunter and you're in the woods, well, you should have this in your backpack too. Looks like a lot of stuff, but guess what? You won't regret having it with you if something goes on. So one thing you should probably always have, oh, I forgot to mention it over here. The other thing, I left out these little items because they actually apply to over here as well. But the items that are common to both, serving thread. Get yourself some serving thread. Now, two types of serving thread that are very, very common are 62XS, which is good for center servings. It's a really general use center serving. Or I would also get BCY 3D serving. Here's a little hint for you. Most of the time, if you're going to be serving in peeps or something like that, you can't go wrong with black. When I'm serving in soft knots, above and below the knock, I like to use a bright colored serving so that I can see what I'm doing. A lot of times, if you use something that's too dark, you won't be able to see what you're doing. You won't be able to see your spacing and all that. So I suggest something bright colored. But you should have a spool of the stuff at home, and you should have a spool of stuff in your mobile. Also, a lighter. Lighters are very important to have with you. Frayed, when you're putting serving on, you're done with the serving, you burn it, and you can seal it in there, lock it up. Get a lighter and you can buy them in the supermarket anywhere. Just make sure it's got an adjustable flame on it, because you usually, most of the time, want it very low. You don't want something like that when you're trying to burn something next to a string. Continuing with what you should have in your mobile kit, set of pliers. Same thing, keep some glue with you. You never know when you're going to need it. String wax. Common to both. Always have string wax. Tools. So I don't want to carry big tools like this in my mobile kit or in my backpack when I'm hunting. But these little numbers over here, I have one in Torx bit, one in metric, and standard Allen keys. Okay? This little kit was like 10 bucks at Harbor Freight. They're tiny. They have everything you need. Not a problem at all. This is a really, really nice kit that I just picked up. This is an Easton Tool, okay? And it basically comes with all the bits that you could ever need to work on a bow. So in the field, having this little kit is very handy. And basically, you put it together like that. You've got 3 bits already installed on it. And it lets you use it as a wrench to work on anything that's got a bolt or a key on it. And they're wonderful. They don't take up a lot of space. They're durable, high quality. And when you're done using them, you just put it back like that. Takes up very, very little space. Keep a length of D-loop. Why is this important? Well, if you have a drop-away rest, if you have, whether it's limb activated or cable activated, that string breaks, here you go. Go ahead, keep some extra D-loop with you. Now, in this case, it's important that you should know you can use the D-loop for it to replace it. I keep it in case I have to make another D-loop in there. But, you know, just having this stuff around, you can use it for anything. If something breaks, you need to tie something up, D-loop is almost indestructible. So just use that. It'll be just fine. That's why I keep a length of D-loop with me. I keep like 2 or 3 feet with me. It's a little bundle like that. Doesn't take up a lot of space. Again, you can get the simple, you know, key sets like this. These are big enough to be working on bows. This is a tool I probably have for 25 years. This is the Fletcher, you know, archery tool, and it has your Allen keys on it. It's got a Phillips. It's got a flathead on there, and it even has a little wrench on there because back in the day, a lot of our sights were adjusted with nuts instead of, you know, the micro adjust that we have available today. This thing lasts a lifetime. They come in different colors depending on when they were made and that sort of thing. They run about 20 bucks, whatever it is. Well worth keeping it around. If you're working on your bow, if you're a recurve archer, you need to have a bowstringer in your bag. Everybody that I know that shoots recurves, you know, some guys shoot both. They have compounds and recurves. Just keep it in the bag because when you're stringing up a bow, trust me, it is much easier and much safer to do it with a stringer, and it doesn't take up any space. If you're in the field, this goes into your hunting bag. It's a broadhead sharpener. Low profile, does the job. Now, remember we said the serving spools over here and the jigs. If you don't want to carry something like this, you can obviously fit this into your mobile bag. But if you don't want to carry any of these things, here's a little one that I carry inside my bag. It has a length of serving on there already in there, and I can work tight spaces because if I don't have my U-serve tool to pop up the string so I can work around my cables and such, I put that right on there, and I can reserve something really fast and really easy. Very inexpensive. The other thing I have is pre-cut lengths of D-loop. Okay? Why is this important? If you use a tool like this, you can take your D-loop apart, and you can actually measure how long it is. This little hook lets you get in there without damaging the string and lets you untie it. That's why I always say tie it loosely in the first place. But this will help you get it up. These little hooks, you can find them anywhere. Home Depot, Harbor Freight, they all have them. But I use this to untie the D-loop, and then that lets me measure my length of D-loop that I need. You'll see these are already pre-cut, pre-burnt. If I break a D-loop or it's starting to fray in the field, rather than have it bust on me on a shot, I'll cut it off, put another one on, boom, good to go. So I keep a few of those in there. Here's something most people forget. Keep an extra release with you. Why? How many times have you driven to the range, forgot your release? You really want to go all the way back home? Sometimes you go into a range, it might be 2 hours out of your way. You go into a tournament, it's 2 hours out of your way. You're in the woods, you forget your release. Game over. I keep an extra release in the bag. Sometimes my older releases, when I retire them, they stay in my bag. Invaluable. Should always have an extra release in there. This is a torch. if I need to work on my arrows or I'm tuning on the field or something like that, I want to try different inserts, that sort of thing. I have my glue. I can do this with a lighter, but if I'm be doing a couple of arrows or something like that, or it's very windy, this torch refills with butane, and it's an actual torch. And I can use this, don't worry about the wind or anything like that, and do my thing. Now, the last thing that you're going to see here, well, I want to mention one more thing. If you're working on bows, you should get, see, like over here I have the bigger Allen keys. Well, when you're working especially on quick disconnects, a lot of times the Allen keys that come on these standard sets, especially on these little ones, they're not big enough to do that. You may want to keep one of these standard key sets over here and make sure that the largest one in there is sufficient to twist down and to lock in any of your quick disconnects on your bow, especially for the stabilizers. Now, these little things I'm just going to bring up right now, and I'm doing a whole video on them so you'll see what it is. If you ever have a problem with your peep spinning or something like that on there, in the video I'm going to show you that you should always put something in, I usually use this, a length of serving, in your bowstring to keep the center of the bowstring. So you can slide it all the way up to the top and always have it in there so that if something happens and someone pops out your peep when they're working on it or something like that, you can always find the center of the string again. If you don't, finding the center of the string can be almost impossible. So what you can do also is take one of these, and this is just the length of D-loop, and I burn both ends. It's very short, and I can slide that all the way up to the top of my string. Now here's what happens. There is no magic to this at all, but if your peep is twisted or twisting on you because something's going on with the bow and you're in the field, you've got two options. Put it in a press and fix it, but like I said, you might be in the field, maybe you can't. So if you don't put it in the press and fix it, what you can now do is, since you have this in your bowstring already, you can slide this down. And as you're sliding it, you look at your peep and it'll start to rotate the peep to the right position. Once you get to the right position, leave it there. And sometimes people use this as a permanent fix. I suggest it only as a temporary one, but it works wonders. So I keep a couple of those in there. You can actually put these in your cables too. A couple of companies have come out with this for a peep system and all that to help you fix that for the peeps. And they've actually came out with similar things to help you fix timing on your cables. Same thing. Just keep them in there and you can slide them up and down and it'll do the job. For cables, you put like one or two of them in there and it'll do the same thing. It's going to take up some space on the cable. It's going to make a minute adjustment, and sometimes a minute adjustment is all you really need. So these are the tools you should have with you, okay? My box that I have, and you'll build your collection as you go along. My box that I take to the range is 3 levels high, about that big, weighs a ton, but that's because I have a lot of stuff to work on bows in there, because whenever my kids, the students that I work with, are having a problem, I want to be able to have everything there in the field. I actually carry a press with me in the car, a saw, you name it, I've got it all in the car. You don't have to go that crazy. Having this much stuff inside your quiver or inside your field pack is more than enough. And this could be just enough so you can work on stuff at home too. But if you're really going to do this seriously, invest in some tools, most of which you already have, and most of which is not that expensive, and get yourself started off right. And later on, if you want to upgrade them, go from this to this. You go from something like this to something like this. It's really up to you, and you don't have to go crazy with it. So, like I said, D-loop, tools, all the stuff, pens, whatever you need, make sure you have it so you're prepared for everything. If you have any questions, feel free to email us. I'm also going to put the links in the description to Amazon. Those are affiliate links. We get a little something from that, helps us pay production costs and stuff like that, keep the internet running, that sort of thing. We're not in this to make money, but it helps. I'll put all the affiliate links on there so you can find the different items that I'm mentioning here. Again, got a question, email us. Give us a shout. We're happy to hear from you. There'll be a couple more videos rolling out this week, and of course a couple of podcasts as well. So, like we always say, it's never goodbye. It's until we meet again. So for now, that's all. Stay safe and shoot straight. Thanks for watching.